Good afternoon everyone, and well, a happy Brexit to the British, or at least today is D-1 or D+1 of the British leaving the EU, which inspired me to do something, well, a little bit indeed inspired as to British cuisine. We're going to be making a meat pie today. So what I'm doing, it's a very basic recipe, nice hearty food for the nasty weather we're having. But what we will be doing is making a pie with some nice lamb mince. Furthermore, what we're going to be needing, as you'll see, it's not a very complicated recipe, but that's going to be some onion, of course some puff pastry. Now I bought some simple store-bought puff pastry. What I always do advise, this is actually store-bought but made with real butter. The other ones tend to have palm oil, which I'm not really a fan of. Furthermore, we need some peas and some broth. Now I couldn't find any lamb broth, so we're working with some beef broth, just as nice. So these are our main ingredients. Well, enough said, let's get cooking, guys. First order of business, that will actually be to fry up our mince. So the only thing we will be doing is, well, basically breaking up our mincemeat into small little pieces and frying this. So everything we will be making is actually going to be a one-pan dish. Just because it's a little handier, I actually chose to make it in a pan, even though we will be making a sauce in this, but pan is sufficiently high. So, but again, break up the meat and fry until, well, it's basically cooked through. Now, as you can see, I've just removed our mincemeat, and next port of call, that will be to fry up our chopped onions. I did indeed add, well, 1 clove of garlic. I know, a bit un-British of me, but again, it's Britishly inspired. And I'm going to season this up with a little bit of thyme and just some salt and pepper. As we indeed fry up our onions. Now, great thing, as you can see, this is a basic one-pan dish. We just want a little color. We don't want these things to go totally brown. We want the onions to go a little translucent in this case. Nothing too major. And I'll add just a tad more of butter. Well, a nice knob of butter. Because next thing we will be doing is making a basic roux. So we want a nice bound sauce in our pie. And for this, of course, we're going to have to make a roux. Now by now you already know the drill. I'm going to add about 2 tablespoons of flour to our fat mixture. And I think she can actually stand a bit more. There we go. So as long as the flour is dissolving, we're good. There we go. So we're going to let this crust up for just a few seconds, just before there we go, putting some stock in there. So that, as you can see, we're getting a lovely thick consistency now. I have one little regret, that I didn't really find any lamb broth, so we're doing with making do with some beef broth. Just as nice, but lamb does of course have that little lovely gamey flavor in there. So but as you can see, we're actually making our nice meaty filling for our pie. I will add my mince back in as well, and we're gonna get these flavors, allow these flavors just a few minutes to get to know each other. There we go. We can add a little bit more stock, and well, as for cooking, this is pretty much, except for of course assembling our pie, but this is pretty much as far as we need to take this recipe. Next thing that will be actually to, well, as we stop cooking, I just want to add of course my peas. Peas are gonna give a lovely sweet balance to the gaminess and meatiness of this dish. But I want to add my peas as last so we don't end up with pea mush. But as for cooking, I think we're just about done. We're about ready to assemble our pie. As you see what I'm using, it's a ceramic deep style of pie dish. Now just one tip I would add, if you want to basically, as this is not a non-stick surface, if you want to add some paper, well, it's pretty easy. Just use the one actually that your dough comes with, and of course there's nothing difficult here. We're just going to spread out our filling nicely, fill up our pie as best we can. As you can see, I already added some peas, and as I did again, I deviated from my own recipe somewhat. So I found the sauce to be a little bit on the salty side, if I must say so. So the mince was already pre-seasoned, and I tried to cut that, and I think it's a very wonderful effect. But I actually tried to cut the sauce with just a good splash of milk, and well, it makes the sauce a lot milder, and indeed a lot or a little more rich in flavor. So you can add a splash of milk if you like. It's just gonna enhance the flavors of the sauce. And by miracle, well, pretty much our filling nicely fills out our pie dough. So we actually have a second one. We're gonna take that and we're basically gonna put a top on it. We are using our second skin or second sheet of there we go, puff pastry to finish this. Now we could do a nice lovely crimping today. Well, it's just food for me, unfortunately, so I'm not going to be too bothered. So we're just going to trim off our, there we go, excess dough. And the idea is just to, well, bring the two edges together. It's getting a little warm with the filling, and crimp them over one another. There we go. We still have a little bit of excess, which we're going to of course trim off. Just fold together and crimp over one another. The only thing we need to do is of course cut two lovely slits so that of course our pie is allowed to breathe. There we go, and there we go. Now this is going to spend about 30 minutes in a preheated oven at 180 degrees, and we should pretty much be done for dinner. Our pie has come out of the oven and she looks, well, lovely. The only thing that's left to do, that's to let this rest for at least 10 minutes. So A, because this pie is just way too hot at this very moment, and B, we want to let the ingredients settle a little bit so that we get a more stable pie. Now this is, of course, what I've shown you is a very basic recipe of how to make, well, a basic mincemeat pie. Now, of course, this is just as well a recipe as it is a technique. You could use different ingredients to make this as you like. Use indeed pork and some minced pork, and indeed some tomatoes, and turn it into something Italian. Use some other spices and turn it into something Moroccan. That's a bit how you like it, how you decide. This is just, well, very, I would say not plain, but a very basic seasoning, but also lovely. All that's left, as I said, let it rest, and then just cut a slice and enjoy, guys.